Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Envision weekly live webinars. I'm Burcu Gajal, VP of System Engineering Customer Success here at Canvas JFX. I'll be guiding you through today's session. And these interactive sessions will guide you through the key tools and workflows available in our Canvas Envision Portal and the Creator. My goal is to enable you to create and manage digital work instructions more efficiently and seamlessly using our platform. And let's take a look at our agenda for today. Let me start sharing my screen. So our agenda for today will be working on managing file status and history in Envision Creator as well as in the Portal apps. And then we will spend about around 20 minutes with a live demo of these features, and I will reserve 5 to 10 minutes for the Q&A session at the end if there are any questions in the chat. So please feel free to drop your questions into the chat at any time. So before we get started, I would like to remind you that this is just one of the series of Envision weekly live webinars. We'll be here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, covering new topics each week to help you to get the most experience of your trial experience. All right, so let's jump into today's session. For those that are brand new to the Canvas Envision platform, I would like to give you a quick introduction of the application. So here is my slide. First of all, Canvas Envision is an instructional authoring platform that enables our customers to create digital model-based step-by-step instructions. And the Envision platform includes a browser-based, mostly modern browser-based creator application with an intuitive UI that simplifies this authoring process. And our customers can also take advantage of our SDKs to embed the creator application to other systems such as PLM, MES, or learning management systems. In the case of PLM integration, the CAD data can be directly imported from the single source of truth to Canvas Envision, and the creator can be informed if there are any changes to these models, to the design information, and then the downstream can make the necessary changes into the documentation. And then our platform also includes an easy-to-manage document management portal with admin settings, user privileges, review process, and sharing features. Like the creator application, our portal could be embedded to other systems, allowing end users to access these documentation from widely used systems such as MES or ERP, QMS type of systems in the organization that has already been deployed and installed, and more wider team members have access to it. And on the right-hand side, as you can see, the documentation can be viewed during or after the creation in a browser for an interactive consumption experience. 3D models becomes interactive experience for the end users. They could see the related parts, related metadata, and then featuring customizable dialog prompts, basically confirming some of the steps that they have been working on, and simply adapting the documentation pages from one to another if there is any inspection list or any related built-in workflow in the documentation, and the layer actions. So the documentation can be switched from one language to another, and then they can simply review the documentation in the language that they're comfortable of reading the information. The viewer application can also be embedded into various digital threads in the organization. We could also embed the viewer application as an HTML, as an iframe approach, so the documentation can be consumed with the URL from any HTML-based environment in the organization. At the bottom of my slide, as you guys can see, we offer the SaaS version of Canvas Envision through AWS or Azure Cloud Services. We provide private cloud as well as government cloud options for our customers, and alternatively, we can also host Envision on our customers' private cloud, any choice of cloud environment, as well as on-premise infrastructure, if that's something that they want to pursue using our platform. So let's go ahead and focus on today's session. documentation, once our customers create documentation, these files, they save it to the cloud environment, and that documentation can be reviewed and published and change the version numbers accordingly, depending on the review process that they're working on, or the publish process that they're working on. But as you can see in this documentation that I created, is a multi-page document with some video components and some layer approach in terms of the tools that are required to use in this assembly. I have a 3D model over here, as you can see. Now the part list that comes directly from the 3D model that we can create and use different types of metadata, instance names, quantities of the parts that they need to have inside of that assembly, and as well as the URL links that we kind of covered this topic in the previous webinar. If you're interested, just drop me a line and I will send you the link for the recording. And creating the part list from the CAD data is extremely easy and efficient in Canvas environment, and then it's completely Excel compatible. And as you can see further in my documentation, I have some exploded views, vectorized version of this exploded views that is easily created inside of Canvas, and some other features and functionalities like animations, and as well as the different types of media like MP3 and MP4 files. We bring them usually as WebM file format because it's more efficient and easy to consume from the end user perspective. Okay, so in this topic, as I said, this is a documentation just as an example, but as you can see, while I'm not working on this documentation, as soon as I start building this documentation versioning goes into the draft mode. That's the default mode. Like any web browser-based application, the documentation is being saved automatically to your cloud environment. You need to log in, as you can see my credentials on the right-hand side, and we have a design workspace or the folder. If you go to the file and if you drop down the option list over here on the left-hand side, you will see your default saving workspace path for this documentation that I'm creating and saving it into. This process is automatic. There is no, obviously you can change the path that this documentation being saved into. However, the documentation will be saved every 20 seconds since it's a web application. We don't want our customers to lose work as in the web environment to back up. That's how it works. So as you can see on the right-hand side, we have the draft version as default and version 0.0.1. And that's my draft version that I'm working on this content. And once I have the content built, I can present this documentation into the review status. And what that means, if I click on the next button over here on the right-hand side, the document reviewer, it means that it's kind of guiding you what you need to do, but you drop down this list, and anyone in this workspace is your colleague that can be reviewing this documentation. You can select them to review this content and add them to your as a document reviewer, and then submit this documentation for review. I get this question all the time. Why can I only have one reviewer at a time? The reason is once you submit your documentation, your version number, the status of your file goes into the review process. And that's one of the reasons that we cannot allow more than one reviewer at a time to make sure the changes are being added to the content. And then the next reviewer can take over and do the changes as necessary. So I'm going to click on Submit for Review. For example, for my colleague Trent over here, and then as you can see, my files icon become yellowish in color, and the version of my file became 0.0.2. So this is basically Trent's version number. When he opens the documentation, starts doing his changes, that's the documentation version number that he's entitled to do the changes. And then the next person, once I have his review and see what he changed, then I can submit to another person, and that's going to be the 0.0.3, which is my second reviewer in this content. So you can see that my version number changed over here, as well as the file color on the left-hand side. So, and since this documentation now is in the review process, we're assuming Trent is doing his changes. And once he's done, I can simply click on this documentation and open and see what he changed in the content. And you can see that it's not in the draft mode anymore. Now this is in the version 002. And once I do and look at the changes that he has done, what I could do, I have two options. Either I can submit to another reviewer to be able to look at this documentation. As you can see, Trent is here. What I need to do is I basically need to delete the Trent over here and then add another colleague or another technical writer or whoever is responsible of reviewing this documentation. And then I can select their name and simply do the same submit for review. And this review process is going to go to 003. So let's assume we have done all the necessary reviewing. And as the content creator, we kind of give an okay to the finalized documentation. The next step to do on this document is take this documentation to its published state. So if I click on this and if I click on publish, what you will be seeing, Canvas Envision is prompting you to go into the Canvas Envision portal, showing in the portal view that this documentation now is actually published and the version number goes from 002 to 100. One number in here is basically your main version versus the 00 dot versions are your draft and review version numbers that you have in the documentation. We have some changes coming in terms of the version numbers. It's more advanced features that are coming in our next release. But in our current release, which is 5.6.1, this is how it works. The version numbering is 100 in terms as soon as I submit this documentation for published status. So as you can see, the color of my icon changed to a blue color, and the status in here also changed into the published, wording. And I can go ahead and see further version history of this documentation. If I go ahead and I will see that this documentation started as a draft, it's been reviewed and which turned into 002, and then it's been opened and then it's finally being published as version 100. Obviously, in this case, this is just a short view for you guys, but this is what has been done. It's just this documentation. I've been working on it for a while, but since I'm the only person working in this documentation, I'm doing changes, I'm creating the content, I always open and didn't submit it for review and publish before. The versioning was 001, which is a draft versioning that is a technical content creator. That's the version that I kind of protected before I release it for the review process, excuse me. So, and you can see over here, once you see the documentation history, you have different filters. You can see the review versions. You can drop, obviously, if the documentation have longer life cycle, you will see different options in here. But you will have further options under the review process, for example, or draft process or publish process. But in my case, it's just one. And if I go to publish, I will also have one. But if I go to draft, it was my first draft, which was 001, and you guys can see that's the original one over here. And I have options to download this as an EV doc, or I can simply open this in the web viewer, which is the viewer version of our Canvas Envision viewer application of our platform, to be able to see what is in that review documentation that you might want to take a look and see. And then next thing that I want to mention over here, once the documentation is in the publish status, as you can see, the version number 100 in this case. And if I click on that published documentation to open, I will have three options. One is open this documentation as in draft. The reason, if a documentation has been finalized and released for consumption, the only reason that you want to open this documentation again to change the content or simply edit or simply update the content that is inside. And while you're doing that review or while you're doing those changes, the documentation goes into that draft version of it again. So that's why your options in here is open this as a draft, or simply view the documentation because you want to see what's in that published content as as an outsider, or you can simply cancel this request. But if I click on open this documentation in draft as a technical writer, since I heard that there are some changes needs to be done in this content, I can go ahead and change that to be in the draft environment, and you can see the version number on my file. When I was working on this content, initially it was 001. Since this documentation has been through review 002, and then it published 100, and now as soon as I open in the draft version of it, my version number became version 1.0.1, which is that 1 at the end represents my draft versioning, draft stage of my content that I'm working on. Again, I do the changes, necessary changes, the fonts or the part number, necessary content that I need to add it in here. Maybe it's a different product line that I'm just basically using as a template and change the content and submit it again. In those cases, the life cycle of this documentation ideally will be going to the review process. And again, let's make sure, Trent let's in this case, let's use Trent again and submit this for review. You will see that my content, my versioning is going to become 1.0.2. The 2 represents in this case of Trent's second reviewing process that he's working on. And now you can see the logo became in yellow in color in review process. And then as soon as I'm ready to publish this documentation, I can click on it. I can review the content that Trent changed in terms of the changes that he needed to do in the content as a technical creator or the author of this documentation, or simply the reviewer of this content. And then I can simply go into the published stage and publish the content, and you will see it will take me to the portal view, and it will tell me that my version became 2.00, which is a second published version of this documentation. And if we go ahead and click on the version history, as you guys can see here, I have different stages, but if I go into and click on the publish, I have 2 published versions of this document and 2 reviewed versions of this document. And as you know, we have different draft versions as well as other features that we have in this drop-down list. So it's very straightforward, but again, there are some changes coming in terms of we give a little bit more control to the creator of the content, defining the major version versus the minor version. We simply listen to our customers, and they had great feedback in terms of they wanted to be able to publish the documentation only after the changes that are substantial, not just a typo, not just some content editing, but it is maybe a part that is changed. Maybe the design has changed. Maybe the product line changed. So in those cases, we will give some control to the creator of the content in terms of editing the major versioning versus the minor versioning of the content creation. So this is what I wanted to cover this week in our session. Again, it's extremely important for the creators of the contents as well as the reviewers and also the end users that are consuming this content. They need to we want to make sure that they have the latest content, and we could simply keep track of the contents directly from the portal view. And let me also show you from the creator environment how you can get access to the version control. If I click on the document, as you see at the top over here, just a quick second, as long as it's loading, it finishes loading my document. If I click on this, the name of the file over here, I have the similar look of the version history, and you can see that I have the similar look from like we did in the portal view versus in the creator application as the creator of the content without even bothering going to the portal environment, and I can filter the same information here as the published document, published stage of this document, review stage of this document, as well as other status of this documentation throughout its life cycle. Awesome. So let me go ahead and click on my enter slide over here. Just give me 1 second. Thank you so much for joining us today. Here is my email address, burju.gojal@canvasgfx.com. Please let me know if you have any questions, any suggestions on the topics that you want us to cover. Our goal is for you to help, even deeper into the different topics and features in our platform. And if you have any other questions or need further clarification, please feel free to reach out to us either through my email address, or through our website. You can always submit a ticket or submit your feedback through our website. Again, thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Have a great day.